we're going to start with the headliner, the one that everybody was looking out for this week. Washington holds on the road in adverse conditions, to put it lightly, in Corvallis, 22-20. They get the victory over the Beavs. Oregon State was favored in this game all week, all the way up to kickoff. And we saw why, especially in the second half, right? Like, Oregon State gave Washington all they could handle. These adverse weather conditions really took a toll on the Washington offense. At the beginning of the game, it looked like Washington was going to be fine. They moved the ball down the field very quickly on their first possession, scored with relative ease. Oregon State did the same. Where, okay, maybe this weather's not going to play a factor after all. We're just going to get a up and down the field game. And Washington scored all 22 of their points in the first half, took a 12-point lead into the break, but it was all Beavers after halftime. They almost clawed their way back into this one to steal the victory on the backs of the defense, because the offense really didn't do the defense any favors. The turnovers there are the key stat. What I was concerned about coming into this game is, what type of mindset is DJU going to have, right? Like, he's kind of gotten to play without a lot of pressure in Corvallis. He had a ton of eyeballs on him in Clemson. I think that was part of his downfall. He's had way fewer eyeballs on him in Corvallis, and he's balled out this year. Now the pressure's turned back up. The eyes of the country are on you. You're the national game of the week on ABC primetime. And he had his moments. He made some plays, but overall, he made some big mistakes that cost his team this game.
Yeah, and it was pretty unfortunate, because I thought, just watching it, Oregon State looked good enough to win this game outside of DJU. And I don't want to, totally crap on the guy, right? He went out there, he fought, things weren't going his way, kept his head up, kept going, but end of the night, 15 for 31, 166 yards, and 2 interceptions just is not going to get it done. But look, you look at some of the other parts, like Damian Martinez had 123 yards and 2 touchdowns, really kept him in this game. And when you looked at the way that this game played out, obviously Washington off to a massive lead in the first half, thanks in no small part to, and I want to make sure I shout him out, Jabbar Muhammad with his 2 interceptions. I mean, just he was a menace. I think the second interception, I think, was the one in the second half, right coming out of the half. He undercut a route, and I mean, at that point, you thought, okay, this game's over. Washington's going to run away with it. Here we go. But outside of that, I saw the graphic on the screen that they put up late in the fourth, or maybe midway through the fourth. They put out a graphic on the show where they said that Washington had 2 possessions in the second half, went 3 and out in both of them, and had the ball for like 3 minutes. And then when you looked at the Oregon State side, they had the ball for like 13 minutes, ran 20-something plays up and down the field. They were just grinding clock, right? They were just basically deciding, you know what? You don't get to touch the football. We're going to keep this thing. We're going to go find 4 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards. They were 2 for 5 on fourth down. That should tell you something about how this game kind of went. They're abysmal on their third down conversions, just couldn't get it done long term. I think a lot of Oregon State fans kicking themselves right now over the fact that their team couldn't pull it off in the clutch moments, right? They could move the ball down the field. They couldn't quite punch it in, settled for a couple of field goals, and just, ultimately wasn't good enough when the moment counted. They outplayed Washington in most of the category. I mean, look at this. They outgained them in total yards. They outpassed them. They outran them. The 3 turnovers were massive, but they got more first downs. They just weren't good in the clutch. They weren't good when it mattered. And you have to give credit to Washington. They made plays down the stretch, but this was Oregon State's game that they lost more than it, I think, was Washington's game that they won.
Well, yeah, and just look at the difference in the margin of victory, right? The margin of victory was 2 points. Those 2 points came from punting the ball at their own 40-yard line and the long snapper just snapping it a mile over the punter's head where it rolled all the way back to the end zone, and the best play was
lost
just
the
to kick it out.
Too, so yeah.
And lost the possession. So, yeah, I mean, Oregon State was right there. This is a really good football team. It would have been no surprise to anybody that if they found a way to win this game. But, this is just Washington's year, it seems like. They are finding a way right now. It's not always pretty. I will say the first half looked really pretty, and I do want to shout out the Washington defense, because that was the big concern on our show and for a lot of people coming in. Can the Washington defense slow down this Beaver offensive attack? 319 total yards. I know it was a monsoon at some points, but Washington stepped up. They made big plays. They made DJU uncomfortable all night. So hats off to them. A much maligned Washington defense steps up big to keep their playoff hopes alive. In the chat right now, we're asking, will Washington win the Pac-12? I'm still saying yes. I just, just call it a confirmation bias from picking them in the beginning of the year to go all the way to the playoff. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. They have Washington State in the Apple Cup next week. A big one, no doubt. Washington State's going to be fired up to play them for the last time on the schedule. That's going to be huge. But I just think they're going to find a way to get it done. I think they're going to find a way in Las Vegas to knock off Oregon again. That's going to be a fantastic game. I'm glad it's a standalone one on Friday night.
Man, I've just got a feeling Oregon's going to get him back. I think, obviously.
Bo Nix looks like a man on a mission right now. We'll talk about them in a second. But
Bo Nix, man, my hot take, I'll share it with more detail in a second, but I think Bo Nix right now, especially given what he might do here in a couple weeks, I think should win the Heisman Trophy. I think that he's been the best player right now to his team. He's clearly had his team looking a lot better. I think Oregon looks a lot better than Washington. Washington does have that team of destiny thing about him right now where they just refuse to lose games even when it looks like they should. But, I mean, look, Oregon just looks like the better team right now, and I think that they're coming for it. They sure are coming for it. I think it's going to be a massive, massive game there in Las Vegas for this one. But I think Bo Nix should win the Heisman. I think Oregon will end up winning that game.
Well, we shall see how that plays out. Oregon still has another big hurdle. Like I said, they got to play the Beavs, who are also going to be fired up that their in-state rivals are leaving them behind in the Platypus Cup Civil War, whatever you want to call it, next week. So a couple big games in the Pacific Northwest.
Gracious, how about